Great, so let's get started with looking at App5. And App5 actually extends App4. So it's the same scenario, it's the product stock control app that you developed in App4, which has a series of products stored in an array list called stock, which you can perform a series of different operations on, such as adding products, deleting products, renaming products, removing products from this stock list. And then you also had that stock demo class, which had methods for running automated tests. And of course, this is really useful because this saves you having to continually create objects on the object bench and then continuously call the methods. You can actually write down these method calls in the stock demo methods so that they can be run automatically just by creating the object and then calling the run demo method. Okay, so we're going to extend that functionality. We're going to keep that, and we're going to extend it by adding a front end to it. So we're actually going to provide an interface which can take input from the user, from the keyboard. Okay, so this introduces the concept of input, which arguably is quite late in the module, but it's important that we cover it. Better late rather than never, because it's going to be so foundational to getting, to allowing our users to interact with our programs and be able to steer the program in the direction that they want to take it in. Okay, so let's have a look at the classes that we're given here. And this has actually been given free. So we've got the InputReader class, which is actually going to be responsible for getting information from the keyboard. So in here it does it by using an object of the scanner class. Okay, and you'll notice here the system.in library, which is being passed to the scanner. So this gives the scanner a reference, a kind of connection to the keyboard. Obviously, you've used system.out.println to allow the connection to the terminal to actually print things to the screen. System.in is the input stream to allow you to type things in on the keyboard and then store that and interact with the software layer. Okay, in which you store that data in variables, of course. So we're going to set that's the constructor of InputReader sets that all up, and then you're also given two different methods here. The first of which is getString, which provides all the code for getting and returning string data from the keyboard. So useful for things like names of products and other string data that we might want to input. And then we've also got another method for getting integers. Okay, and of course this is going to be useful for getting integer data, such as quantities, IDs as well. Okay, so we've got those provided for us in the InputReader. We'll have a look at those more as we get into this. And then the next class we see is the StockApp, which is going to be responsible for providing the menu, this interface that we want to respond to. Okay, if we go down to the print menu choices method here, you'll see that we're provided with some operations that we could perform. Okay, and the idea is that we actually link these menu choices to the methods that you coded in the StockManager in App4. Okay, so when you select add by typing it in on the keyboard, you want to then call the addProduct method in the StockManager. Okay, to actually be able to do that. All right, so we're going to get into that and how we connect the two. Yeah, and there's just the print heading as well. Okay, so that's the stock app. And then finally, the program class, which only has one method, and that's the main method. Okay, and remember it's a static method. That means we don't have to create an object of this class in order to be able to call the method. We can actually just call it directly through the class. Okay, so if I wanted to just take a look at the very basic version of this app as it stands, as it's given to us, what we can do is we can right click directly on the class and then call the main method. And notice I can also create an object of it, but I don't need to because it's a static method, the main. So therefore, don't need to create an object of it to be able to call it. Okay, and here's what we see. We see the heading printed out and then the menu choices. And then we've got a prompt to type in one of these options. Okay, I don't think it's going to be responsive as of yet, but just to show you, yeah, it doesn't respond to it because we haven't coded it. Okay, we're going to do that. But hopefully what you saw there is it does allow me to type in data from the keyboard. And at the moment, it's just in an infinite loop. It's just going to keep going and going and going. There's nothing even to allow me to quit yet, so I'm going to need to do that. Unfortunately, it's hard to get out of it because you can't use the X at the top. So one thing you could do is just use the close if you did want to run it in its form given to you. And then just refresh the virtual machine. Okay, that's one way to get out of this infinite loop. Okay, but just hopefully that illustrates what's given to us so far. All right, so let's get set up then. And what we're going to need to do is, in order to use the code from the classes that we coded in App4, the StockManager and the product class, and you could even include the stock demo if you wanted to, because that has the set tests, could be useful for running more automated tests with this. But at the moment, if we just want to set up a dynamic application which responds to stuff on the keyboard, we can actually add those products as we go. What we need to do is we need to focus on adding the product class and the StockManager class. All right, so easy way to do that is just to locate your App4 project. And so let's go to that. And then you can literally just drag and drop those files, and make sure you drag the Java files, by the way, the actual Java code, not the class files. That's going to be the byte code, the ones and zeros. You want the Java code. So just drag and drop that into the GUI, the BlueJ interface, and also StockManager. Okay, so currently they're uncompiled, but hopefully if I've included the right ones, this should have some of the codes to allow us to deliver and sell and find. Yeah, it's there. Okay, so hopefully, use your completed code as well. This may not be fully complete, but use the completed code that you had from App4 and drag it in. Okay, and then the product also should be there as well. Hopefully that should have the methods that we need. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, cell quantity. Yeah, good. Okay, so now we're going to focus on connecting those together. All right, so let's think about this. Well, in the StockApp, in order to call the methods of the StockManager in the StockApp, because that's where the menu choices are going to be displayed, and that's also where we're going to ask for the user to type in something from the keyboard, it might be worth us creating an object of the StockManager in the StockApp. Remember, you had to do this with a stock demo in App4, where you had to pass an object of StockManager to the stock demo in order to be able to call the methods. It's a similar process here. So I think we'll add an attribute for StockManager. Let's just call it manager. Okay, so there's my attribute, my field at the top of the StockApp class. And in the constructor, let's also instantiate that. Manager equals new StockManager. Okay, just so we've got an ability to be able to call the methods. And we also need to work out how we're going to respond to what we type in. So hopefully we managed to, as you saw a bit earlier, we managed to type in the word add, and hopefully that would have been stored in string choice, this variable, this local variable that we've set up to store what it returns. GetString is going to return what we type in the keyboard. Obviously that's going to be string data, so that's not going to be, I suppose we could type in the number if we were to number the options, but let's just stick with strings for now. And importantly, we're going to have to interpret this string, aren't we? So if we typed in the word add, and that's stored in choice, we have to set up some conditional statements to say, well, if the choice has the value of add, then we want to call the addProduct method in the StockManager. All right, so that's the thinking. We've now just got to convert that to code. And I think we might be best to actually create a new method to store the code which responds to that choice, that input from the keyboard. So I think what we'll do is we'll set up a new method. Let's call it execute menu choice. Oops. And here, and just for good practice, I'm best to add a java.comment as well. Let's just quickly do that. So this is going to be respond to the user's choice, something like that. Okay. Right. So if the choice, and as I think about this, it's probably going to be a good idea to pass this local version of choice, this local variable, to this method. So let's set up a parameter to accept that, because choice is not a class field. I can't access it like I would usually do these fields here, which are visible to all the methods. Here, choice is only visible to this particular method. So I think if I was to call executeMenuChoice, I would have to pass choice to it. All right. So let's do that. So now we've got to interpret that choice. Right. So if choice, and again, there's a series of different methods that you could use. You could use the equals method if you wanted the literal match, or contains is also quite popular. So I'm thinking later on, you're probably going to be asked to add in extra menu options here, like searching and printing one of the options, printing all of the options. So you might vary your approach as to whether it's print or print all. But I think for now, what we'll do is we'll try and use equals. If it equals add, and I've got to be careful of casing here as well, of course, because if I type in uppercase A for add, that is going to be different to lowercase a for add. Even though it's the same word, has the same meaning, it's actually a different literal string. So I might be best actually to try and minimize the problems caused by all those different variations. I'm thinking it might also be a good idea to convert that choice to either all uppercase or all lowercase to try and minimize the amount of validation I have to do. So let's say choice dot to uppercase. All right, I convert it all to uppercase, and then that will make it easier to compare that when I come to execute it or respond to it. All right, so I'm going to compare it with this rather than having to compare it with uppercase, lowercase, and all the different variations as well that come with that. And if you want, actually, you could create some constants for these. This might also be a good practice thing here as well. So I might want to create some constants. And in Java, that's going to be final as well. So that's going to be final string add has the value of add. Okay, and then likewise we can do it for other things as well. So for print and for remove, rename, etc. So if it has that, because I might want to print it out as well later, so it's helpful to have it defined. If it's equal to add, then here's where we can what we set up earlier, that object of manager, we can call the addProduct method there to be able to add the product. That's the idea. We've selected the add option, so then that corresponds to calling the add method in StockManager, what you coded previously. And you set up all those different tests in the stock demo. You added all your different items and it added it into that stock array list. Okay, but we've got a problem here because in the addProduct method, we're expecting a product object. Okay, but we may not have one to add at this stage. It's likely that the user of this system has just loaded up this menu and there might not be an object actually created. So what I was saying earlier, I think we might be best to actually create an object here, right here and right now. So we can actually reuse those input methods to ask the user to supply the product name and the product ID, maybe even the quantity as well, if you want to. And then add that object that we've just created to the addProduct method. Or if you want, like I also said earlier, you might want to also include the stock demo class. You might want to add that into here as well. And maybe that would trigger some automated tests. Maybe you could include in your menu whether you want to use your preset objects, your product objects that you've created here, or you actually want to create them on the fly. You want to create them as you go, dynamically. All right, so you've got different options there. But I think it might be best that we code the responsive action. So we want our user to type in the details here. So what we could do is this is also extra practice of using the getString and the getInt methods. So let's do that. So let's set up, let's use a capital for string as well. Let's set up the name of the product, and then what we can do is we can use that reader object. That's the object of scanner, by the way. Sorry, it's the object of the InputReader class, which has the object of scanner. Sorry, my apologies there. And that we can call the getString method there, and it also takes a prompt as well. So here's where we can pass in a particular question, a particular prompt that we want our user to respond to. So here, in the first menu, where it supplies the different operations that you can use or call, it's asking for one of those. But here, in our submenu of that, if you like, the add product submenu, we want to ask them to add the product name, don't we? So we could say, please enter the product name. And if you want the little arrow there as well, you can include that. And then hopefully that's going to be returned and stored locally in this name attribute, which we're later going to supply to the object of product. Okay, we're getting there. So let's do the same for the ID as well, because we're probably going to need those two as a basis. Okay, so same again, but rather than calling getString, we can call getInt, because that's one of the other methods that's been supplied to us in the InputReader. So again, it was at the bottom, we showed it earlier, getInt. All right, again, takes a string prompt to then print to screen. All right, so let's go back to StockApp and let's type in, please enter the product ID. And again, let's have an arrow there as well. All right, so hopefully we get that from the keyboard as well as an int. And then we can pass those two attributes that we got from the keyboard to a product object, because we've got the product class, haven't we? We've got that here. So that could just be passed into the constructor of the product and then supplied for that, which we then in turn add here. So let's create an object of the product. Let's just call it product for now. Equals new product. So here's the call to the constructor. Oh dear, I need to spell that correctly. And we can pass, let's get the order right. What is that? It's ID and then name. So it has to be in that order. We have to pass the ID first and then the name. All right, that's going to create a product object with those details that we stored temporarily, basically from the keyboard. Okay. And then we can supply that product object to the addProduct method in the manager. All right, so that's as we did in the stock demo. So we're basically providing a dynamic way of doing this, where you're creating the object details, you're hard coding them in the stock demo, but in the stock app, we're asking the user to provide that information dynamically from the keyboard. All right, and perhaps we could have a little confirmation here as well. We could just say line, and in fact, I think the products class has probably got, yeah, it's got getters, so we can just feed that back to the screen just as a little confirmation. We can say products dot get name. And perhaps you might also want to include the ID as well. Call the getID method. Has been added. Okay. I just want to put that on a new line just to keep it. Oh, and that's, sorry, just a bit of formatting here, just to keep our lines shorter. There we go, just a little output there, a little confirmation. All right. And I think while we're here, what we'll also do is we'll provide a way to get out of it, all right, because else we're continually getting stuck. So notice here it's in the infinite while loop. We've got a Boolean flag here to say that finished is false, so that never changes, so it will always remain it always remain unfinished. So therefore, if we enter in quit, we want to exit this loop. Okay, so if choice equals quits. I didn't create my constant for this. Let's just do that really quickly. But then we want to set the finished to be true. Okay, so that should then get us out of this infinite loop. All right, so let's do that. Let's create another constant for quit. You don't have to do this, but it's good practice, just as these are never going to change. They're going to be commands that can be never going to change, and they're also going to be reused as well. So you might want to go down that route of creating your constants there. Okay. So I think we've probably got enough now to be testing this. And perhaps, depending on design, you may want to put this quit in here as well. But if you do that, you may have to provide a way of getting that information back to this particular menu. Okay, so there's finer points there about design, but just as a basic way of getting this up and running, let's just check it works. And of course, you can refactor later and change the design of it. So let's compile all of this, check it all compiles. And let's run the main. Okay, so we've got some old details here. So there, what? Let's clear the screen, and just going to type quit there. Oh, and I'll tell you what I may also need to do. Did I convert it to uppercase? Let's just check that. Yes, I did. Yeah, that's fine. So that will work there. Now that we've cleared the screen, let's run it afresh. And let's try typing in add with lowercase and see if it converts it. Yeah, it must have done. So we don't actually see a confirmation of that, but obviously it's called this add case. It's obviously triggered that because I'm now being prompted to type in the product name. So if we just use iPhone as an example, iPhone 12, and then give it an ID, 101 example. There we go. We've got a little confirmation there. And let's call the quit. Yeah, I don't get a confirmation there. Maybe I should add one actually. That would be good. But at least now I can close the terminal. Yeah, so that's, yeah, of course, there's lots of different modifications you can do. Let's just add a little confirmation there. So thank you for running the application. Bye. Okay, there we go. Oh, don't need to. That's good. Okay, so let's do one more. Let's do one more in terms of the print. So, because we might also want to add lots and then check that they all get printed to the screen. Okay, and again, remember there's going to be some finer details here because you're probably going to have a print all, and then you're going to have print individually. So you may want to think about how you're going to differentiate between that. Okay, I'm just going to use print for now, just to keep it simple, but just a warning for future when you go and add those that you may need to think about the formatting of that. But let's just do print for now. And say print. I'm going to use this for printing all of them. And now it's going to be a very similar format. I'm not going to have to, I shouldn't have to worry about creating new details here because I should really just be able to call the print all method. I hope it doesn't take any parameters. Let's just check the StockManager. That's the singular print product. Yeah, print all products. So I should just be able to call this within within here. So manager print all products, and hopefully, if that's interpreted correctly, that should allow me to print them all once they've been added. Let's give that a try. See if that works as expected. So there we go. Okay, so here let's try a different variation of add just to check. Yes, it does convert that all to uppercase, which is good. Let's use our good old iPhone example here, and yeah, there we go. And let's try print. Aha, there we go. And currently we've got one product in stock. That was when we added. Didn't add any quantity. Perhaps that's something, oh yeah, you were asked to do the sell and deliver as well. So that's something you can add. You can expand this menu to deliver products to increase the quantity, and also sell products to decrease the product quantity. So let's do one more add example just to check we're on the right lines here. And let's say Google 48. Let's put this in 102. Good. That was obviously added. And let's do one confirmation of that. Print. There we go. Yeah, and there it is. It's added into the stock list. All right. So there we go. Let's quit this. There we go. And now we can do that. Okay, so hopefully that gets you started with App5. As you can see, you've actually done a lot of the functionality already in the StockManager in App4. So all you really have to do is just find a way of interpreting what you type in on the keyboard to then call those methods. All right, so have a go at this then, the additional features here, the stage 3. See if you can add in all of your other menu options to call the corresponding methods in the StockManager. Okay, so give that a go and see how you get on.